Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, everyone. We sincerely apologize for starting a bit late. We're supposed to start at 9 o'clock, but due to load shedding, we had to change venues from where we were yesterday to another place, and we would like to extend a word of gratitude to the music department head from the University of Fort Hare who assisted us with the venue when we have a problem, load shedding. We know nowadays in South Africa we always encounter that impilo yethu xa sibuza impilo ngoku sesithi siyaphila kunjani akhondo ngaphandle kwalento yombane, but siyathemba ukuba ngaba sizawuzama ukuphusha. Yesterday we did ingoma eziyi-6, that means 50% of our prescription, and today will be sabe siqhubezela ngomnye u-50%. That is, we're starting today with the genders, or in no particular order. We have gender-based songs, that is male and female, and then we have Western pieces for both standard and large, and African pieces for both for both standard and large as well. So that means we will try by all means ukuthi sileke amaxesha so that singaphindi sibe ne challenge nakulesi kuyo indawo load shedding. We're hoping that you accept our sincere apology. Colleagues, yesterday we did some analysis of ingoma, and then we did the practical part of the songs and also giving a little bit of a background. And today we feel it's also important to take that approach as well, and also outlining some generic aspects of music, just in general, be like in the form of singing, conducting, technique, and score analysis, because we are dealing with songs. We said yesterday, you cannot just get inside the room and just do whatever that you want to do without noticing first what is which is exactly the music. Without understanding what is happening in the song. So we said you cannot start by singing without understanding what is the intention of the composer. And today we have Salon Tanaro, no? And also we have Wherever You Walk. We have From the East and to the West. We have From the Sensor, Killing Rise. We have Ayikwindlela Makrestu, and we have Buyangwane. That is all those 6 pieces. And remember yesterday, before we closed our session yesterday, I indicated that today we will be I will be joined by I don't want to say colleague. He's my everything to me when it comes to music. The person who inspired me a lot when it comes to opera music, and who the person owahlahla indlela for some of us, for most of us as singers, ezafunda kwesa skolo sisekapa abahlahla indlela. One of the black students who went there, who is the head of the division classical voice, a voice kwa a University of Cape Town, who is also a lecturer recently. We're going to show you that, and I'm sure most of you have already have a CD yakhe apho seyiphumile market as we speak, and mna nami apho ndihleli khona I do have that CD. One of the best baritones we have in South Africa, Professor Ubutpet, waziwa ngelika Butpet utishala, Patrick Dikolo. He's with us today, and this is our best sebenza kunye from now up to the end of the program. We will be with him. It is of a great pleasure for me, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce him. I know ukuthi ndingumntwana kakhulu to do that job because ndikhule ndincanca apha kuye, ndikhule ndilusana olulapha kuye, olukhuliswa nguye in terms of when it comes to singing. We learned a lot from them. You can mention number of singers, abotamthuru, budumthunzi, umthunzi Mbobela, nabo babe bonke sifunde kubo bonke. He's got, I don't know, i-CV yakhe singathatha almost usuku xa sinoyifunda. But what I can tell you is that he even went overseas at Dallas to study music, and then he graduated there on his master's, and I know for a fact he did several recitals across the globe. You mentioned your Italy, London, Germany, and otherwise, including US. And he even went further to be an adjudicator, not only in local competitions, even international competitions, be it choral singing or even opera singing. So that is none other than Obulpet. Sizawusebenzisana sonke. He's gonna start with the program as we have planned, and our pianist has just joined us today. Would love at least today, Brau, you've got a grand piano, not a keyboard. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Let me welcome Obulpet.
Please allow me to sit down, and I'm sure, is it going to? Yes. Sure. I'm saying so because that introduction should have stopped after saying Patrick Watigona Ezwelich.
Oh yes, I forgot that
you
part.
Put me under pressure right now. I don't know that guy we're talking about. Be that as it may, I'm here. Thanks, Knox. Yes.
Just a minute. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that Umdwana Womkuba, Walape PCM, by the way. Uzalwape PCM, Abezwelicha, Ezo. Possible pet.
When Wallapa Eastern Cape and Bagut happened when they sevenza somewhere. One was Eastern Cape, sometimes I know they feel like kicking nobody up on the introduce of being from the Western Cape. I am a proud umfana walapa ephondweni lamaphondo. Right. Colleagues, I know for a fact, because we are also joined by other colleagues remotely. I am going to do my best to always, take into consideration that we have people from outside. Be that as it may, I thought it's probably going to be wise that I do a bit of a disclaimer, if you may.
Sure.
This disclaimer means nothing less than saying we are here, Tammy and I, in front of you. I don't think we are different from you. We are one of you. Colleagues, I call you Ngoku, Nisi colleagues. You are not students, you are not Abandabangabani. And so as we are about to, kick off, I want us to just know, Guti, what comes out of us here doesn't mean it's the only way. I always consider art as something that becomes effective by involvement of yourself and myself. And so we try and look at this thing that is called art with that kind of an eye. And then we are going to be able to establish that what we call music, that what we call artistry. I think that's also the reason why we are here. I still consider myself a student of this art form. I I know I will be learning a thing or two from you while we are engaging. And don't at all regard this as a one-way session. We are going to interact, ask questions, say what you want to say. In other words, highlight what you want to highlight. I believe yesterday even people that are connecting with us remotely were able to raise questions or express via the page that is created there. That is still allowed. We will do our best to answer questions as they come, and I can safely say to you all, I do not know it all. There might be questions that I won't be able to answer, and maybe Tammy might not be able to answer, but we will endeavor to find solutions together, because this is what this art is supposed to be doing to us. We must engage, we must try and find answers so that we are able to take this. My take is that it should be further. We should take it further. There are things that are fundamental and that I know sometimes we take for granted. And then we think being a conductor or having a choir means you prepare those songs, you take them on stage, you fully set from bar one until the last bar. People clap hands, you're out of that stage. You wait for your results and so forth. I think we ought to engage, we ought to talk further about some of those fundamentals. And so the way I start this today is talking about some of those. Some could be the points that you know they are rather, it's probably things that you think do not matter at your level. But just be mindful of that one person who still can learn a thing or two from those. Because our level of understanding and of course knowing things will definitely never be the same. It cannot be, or it is not the same. Some are much more matured, some have been doing this for a long time, some are still new. You know, we want to make sure that those that are new also learn a thing or two, so that they are able to take this, you know, patterns from most of us, to take this to the next level. Or we want to assure that there's future in this thing. Right. So I try to actually combine a bit of notes just to talk about some of those things. I start off by talking about a brief outline about singing. Call it choral singing, but it is essentially going to be singing. What is a choir? I want to start it that way. I feel a choir is a body of singers who come together for just one reason: the unity. Because there cannot be a choir besides trying, first of all, to seek that unity. People who come to be on stage are people that must sound as one. People that are supposed to be sending a message, one. I don't care no matter if it is a John or but when the choir is on stage, you can't have a message you're supposed to by Tumela with audience, and then the audience will respond to that. And then if we're talking about effective choral singing, we're definitely talking about the measurable or a measured kind of blend and balance. We're always going to be considering this part balances with that one, and within this one part are the voice blending together. And so some of the nitty-gritty must come just with those two things. We just cannot look away without making sure that we have that in control. And now, effective choral singing comes because there's this unified choral singing. There's this unified sound. These people are working together. And then, of course, when all of that is in order, it means there has been considerations that were put in order. First of all, we're talking about the vowels, the vowel sounds. When you're talking R, A, E, O, U, that's where the main source of our sound comes from. how good or bad the sound is depend on how those vowels are aligned. If we're talking about a choir, there cannot be one part that sings ah and another sing oh and another sing ah. We're talking of different shapes, but you must have this one kind of shape, a particular vowel, that you must make sure it is sung in uniform. And then in so doing, you are finding exactly the result with you. This is the tone that I'm looking for. Let's all stick with it. So it is very important. Again, vowels are there. Sometimes if I just were to say I, oh, I, it's going to be meaningless until a consideration of making sure that there are consonants. Now you are able to hear me because I have all of these consonants that also necessitates the fact of, but now you can make sense of the T. If also I am using consonants on their own, you probably will not make sense of what I'm doing. If I'm saying you don't even have a clue of what it is that I'm saying. So the combination of vowel sounds and consonants are a driver of lento sitata sisa on stage that we call singing. So I thought it is important that I draw attention into that first of all. Now, all of these things have to be driven. This person who makes sure he guides these people that have been, called here together to actually try and find these sounds with the commonality. This person is who conductor. Who conductor must be somebody who's knowledgeable. First of all, you cannot be also expecting certain vowel sound that must be done in a correct way if you don't know what that sound, how to achieve that particular vowel. You must have a knowledge of what it is. How or why are you asking for that one vowel? That ufuna bayicule bona. So it is important that you as a conductor, first of all, you have a know-how. Yeah. And so a conductor also must be a person who is musical. We're dealing with music. And then if you are a conductor who's just going to be there and mastering this one thing only, you're keeping the beat, moving the beat forward. It cannot be making it cannot be sending us in Nanziga the vibes as it music was already. Be this someone who is able to know the nuances, all these nitty-gritties that actually make it performance succeed, because when as a conductor, you know what it is that you're looking for, you are prepared. You know the art, you know the craft. It's always going to be about that. You should be able to communicate that musical idea. You should be able to make sure ikwaya yako understands. We're talking, of course, of his needs. But if you are in front of them, literally having no clue of what it is that you are expecting out of them, you make them feel like, okay, they don't know why they are there. So if you are there as a conductor, be this person who will be able to impress upon without being able to do that. Your choir won't actually be able to give results. Now, again, we're talking one important thing again. I was doing this earlier on. We have patterns in the musical forms, and at times we're talking about conducting, we're told of the time signatures. If you are able to define, when we're talking of 4/4 time, be able to define that time signature. Know how to beat for that. If we're talking 3/4 time, how to beat for that. Ne? And it's not always going to be. In fact, it never can be this thing. Because sometimes we get to conduct orchestras. They, for the most part, they don't use the same vocal scores that we have. Our scores will always be sometimes, okay, all the parts will be there, soprano, alto, tenor, bass. They would have a funny score. When you look at their score, it's not as defined like ours. So if sometimes they can get lost at some point. But if you know the beat value and you are able to actually, you know, portray it in a nice way, even if they get lost, they'll still be able to find you. They'll be able to find you because they now can feel, okay, that's the strong bit, that's the weak bit, and so forth. So all I'm trying to say there is, at least be able to define those, you know, rhythmic patterns, and be able to actually define the time signatures and all of that. Now, if we're to talk about the voice itself, because all of this thing talks to one thing. This is the voice that we are able to tell. Ukuthi kune unified singing. All of these elements are within. Without us hearing the voice that is, you know, out there, it's not going to be able, even for the adjudicator, even for an audience member that you're singing with, they'll never be able to tell without them hearing the voice. I'm trying to say then, the voice is the integral part of this thing, which is choral singing. So I wanted to talk about the voice as an instrument, slightly. If we're talking about the voice as an instrument, first of all, there is a process. There is a process which starts by the body parts communicating with each other. You know you're supposed to start singing. You just don't sing. Even if you think you just sing, you probably are not considering one thing. Somebody tells you sing, and then you receive that instruction. The body itself receives that instruction. The ear will talk to, through, of course, some nervous system within you. The ear will talk to another part of your body, but information is running through the system to say, let's do this. I just want to talk about that process first of all. That process is called volition, because without that communication, you will never know that you're supposed to be breathing. Because for you to breathe, or even for you to sing, it means you can't sing properly without having organized the breath accordingly. So I'm just trying to sort of. Yeah, so so you just must make sure the volition, it talks to exactly the fact that those muscles are talking to each other to say, this is the instruction, this is where we must go. And then volition is going to be followed by respiration. The fact that now you must prepare that breath, the breath which also talks to the breathing muscles. The fact that all of those muscles must actually do their thing. We're talking about into ezifana trachea, into ezifana lungs, which are involved actually in making sure that a breath comes in place. We're talking about a diaphragm. We're talking about ribs and all of that. I'm not going to go to that much and nitty-gritty about that, but I just want to take you through the process. And then all of those now act together in the process of inhalation. Inhalation is when you breathe in, and then exhalation when you breathe out. All of that also talks to the fact that even in singing, you just cannot sing with one breath from the first until the very last note. There's going to be a process where you run out of breath. When you run out of breath, you'll need to inhale, ube nomnye umoya, and then the process continues. Kind of inhale, you breathe, uphele umoya. You inhale, ucule, but uzawuphela umoya. Once you uphela umoya, it means recover. You recover by taking another breath. And that breath will take you through again until uzawuphela nalo. You take another one. You must always have that process going on for you to manage your singing accordingly. And then from your respiration, it goes to ephonation. Ephonation is when a voice box or a larynx, when actually they start vibrating a vocal sound, a vocal folds as well. Right now you can hear a sound. That sound we mamelaya weaver because a breath has actually went on. Yadibana nandoni ne larynx or a voice box. And now you can hear a sound. Be it's a soft or big sound, but that sound comes because there has been la activity from your respiration. There is phonation. When we start hearing the sound, phonation then will be followed by what we know of as irresonation. Irresonation is the combined resonance cavities in umlomo, in nose, and all other vibrators. The fact that now you are hearing that sound again, I'll take it further to say that sound, it's either coming, I can still close, there is a sound that has been formed because there was earlier on that vibration. So what you must actually hear more now, because umlomo uvulekile, his sound is coming out. We also are able to detect city, there's too much nasality and all of that, because his sound can still come there. When it is there, you are able to hear that sound in Negamalaya. I'm trying nasal. The point I'm saying is, it is also that process of his sound now that is coming to actually is the upper is the to squares we define. The last one is then articulation. I spoke about again Indo 80 for you to make sense of what I'm saying. There are organs within umlomo wamgengu. There is ulwimi, my tongue, my teeth, which actually play a role in making sure that articulation, yala sound, is clear for you to hear what I'm trying to say. So articulation, it is shaping its own into recognizable sounds, which are the sounds now where you are able to make sense of that. All of that takes us through the 5 stages of voice as an instrument. I started by saying evolution. Evolution that was followed by respiration. Respiration that was followed by phonation, when voice is starting to come out. And then we're talking about irresonation. Irresonation, which is now through umlomo and through in my nose, you are able to make sense of that sound. And beyond that, we have the articulation, the fact that I'm able to use amazinho and also my teeth, and my mouth, tongue, and so forth, for you to make sense of what it is that I'm saying. Yeah. So that was just trying to actually give you some sense. I would also say a line or two. Do not shy away from doing your vocal warm-ups. People want to come and practice it. To your point that those choristers want to come only when the songs are known. When there's no more notes, when there's no more warm-ups, because they want to be there. And again, importance here vocal warm-ups is for a choir to be there as one. Not only ngondo, but again we're saying vocal warm-ups that could also relate to body warm-ups, because sometimes you have been having a long day elsewhere. We come from all of those corners, and then for us to get that oneness I spoke about, the unity, it means there must be vocal warm-ups before we get up of failure control, so that we try and have our bodies, minds come together for us to actually achieve that one goal. Practice was successful. Ababantu ke benza into against that. Those are the people you must guard against and actually be strict to make sure they don't do that. I know some take it for granted to say, I'm made of steel. I don't need that. When I come there and debate, you know, by peta ko bantu bakhathaze kwale ngaba bantu bacuma uyayazi isolo yakhe nokufike nini ningacula nipractice nithini uyayazi xa fikile everybody stops and uyayazi uconductor wakho umthembile soze aqhubeke uconductor wakhe ngaphandle kwala soloist abo bantu bayimoshikwana.
You.
Abo bantu bayimoshikwana. And briefly, I want to talk about the important factors before teaching the ingoma. You probably should know this. As a conductor, you do that research of yours. One, about lengoma uyithatha le sting storyline sakhe. Uzisa lengoma because ufuna kuthweni ngayo. Don't let ufuna uyiphuhlisa. Sithini storyline sakhe. Wabe uyifumene lengoma wena, okay, you familiarize yourself. It's got the rhythms, of course, that are going to be different because ingoma kufuneka ibe ne note, ibe ne ukhweva zodwa, crotchet zodwa. Ingoma izawuqhuba i-rhythms zonke. What I'm saying is those rhythms are going to be very important that we are able to define them, not depending on somebody else within ekwayele nakudefinele because uzawuzijongisa phansi ndithetha nawe conductor. And then of course the notes, the pitches. Familiarize yourself with those pitches because again, for them to be comfortable, you also must be familiar how that pitch sounds, so that you are able to say, no, altos, that's flat. Hey, sopranos, sing a little bit sharp. If you know, I'm trying to make it. We move on to say there are going to be words, there are going to be notes. Sometimes fitting those words and those notes together, especially when we're dealing with these foreign languages, that, you know, so if you have your own moment to know this note goes along with this syllable, and that syllable goes there, and then you're able to fit those words accordingly. And then, that is not recognizable because the conjuring word. Yes, we cannot talk of any performance without talking about now the elements. Any performance will be defined by elements. By elements, I mean we're talking of things like the tonal color. The tonal color, of course, we know that it talks to I was talking about the vowel sounds and earlier on. They define that tonal color. And then we're talking about stuff like diction. Diction, you must hear what you're singing, articulate properly so that into yako makes sense. There are going to be dynamics and expressions. Itulo. Sometimes aleatory without the dynamics and expressions. But if you understand the story cycle, you still are able to do dynamics because you get a lead maybe from the words and go in. But it talks to the fact that there must be a dynamic variety within Itulo A. We again talk about the phrasing and the breathing. Like I was saying earlier on, you take your breath. You sing this one passage, but the breath will run out. After taking that breath, you continue. Again, it means your breath must be in order. That process, you control that process for us to know that the phrasing is mastered, the breathing is in order. So those are very important. Pitch and intonation. We always are told there was a pitch problem, that choir, it ended up being flat, because there was less or not enough support. E-support, which is going to be important with the singing here at any point. The musical accuracy. Again, you must sing what is on the score. You must not come with your own rhythms because you feel when you turn a club. It's a prescribed piece. It must lean on the music as written by the composer, unless advised otherwise. Lastly, the style and interpretation. Sing the song according to a style that is proper. And yes, there are going to be requirements or moments that you are expected to actually interpret the song. I cannot undermine interpretation. While the song is written for everybody to see, values and all of that, but it's always nice to see a conductor who goes out of his way to actually, take the song to another level. Make your adjudicators, your audience, wow them by saying, I can bring this perspective. That perspective matters. It matters because without you showing the understanding through your musicality, artistry, that can never be achieved. That is the interpretation that is proper. It used to be called general interpretation. In the old scoring guys, you see, 10, 10, but there's going to be into the general interpretation 50. It meant it called for you to actually give it the attention, so that yes, this person knows what he's doing. He prepared this piece, wasn't like pamphlet. Right, I'm almost done. And this will be in the Anzutera choral technique, because it was covered well when I was talking about the songs and the fact that we always are looking for that oneness. Again, in the by interpretation, the sound like tat, moisho, the London sound of Teranga. Now, I think now, Tammy, before, in fact, colleagues, before we go on to Ikulo Lokala, I want to invite you, if you have a question or something that you want to highlight about what we just spoke about, or about what I just said to you, please feel free. Like I said earlier on, this will never be a one-sided thing. Yeah. And feel free to, you know, comment, raise your hand and say something. Any point, any question?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, but just to add, I'm happy with the fact of the I bekangayo or that's the way the mbiza ngayo ndibiza bhuti ne ndibiza bhuti senjo the manner at which I bekangayo le ndaba yok understand about the problem yethu sinala culture yovisithi hayi ndizawuwomisha ngale section apha kule ngoma ndizawuwomisha ngo ayikho indlela amaKrestu ngale phathi ayikho indlela i-voice ayikabikho ready ayikabikho tuned ayikabikho. That is why even nabi orchestra kune families kuthiwa family of strings, family of this, family of that, uyayibona each other. And before they start anything, they do what? They tune the instruments, and the voice exactly that. To add to Glenda Choyuputi, with sheets now that we normally use, especially when it comes to performance, there is a three. If you are three aspects: the sound aspect, he touched upon it; the technical aspect, which deals with the intonation and the correctness of rhythms and stuff, and the musicality. That means the analysis or interpretation or general interpretation of the song. In other words, this song, when it comes to sound aspect, it dinga what type of a voice. It dinga a character, a voice enjani. It dinga bangabi approach itini tangabanina tsika. But what we always, the gospel that we always preach is that, man, don't change your voice to something that ananza ibeka ungathi engeyiyo uyayibona nichoyo ne be you, regardless of the song can change. Ingatshintsha ibe ngungqobe, ibe ngumbeki imbali, ibe ngumeli sizezwane, ibe but the voice will remain as you. The only thing that you must attend to, how am I going to approach this song, that general now, the approach of the song, but the voice will remain the same. Lando iti ate uMaxo phaya sino Maxo Botman umkhulu wethu apha emculweni. He used to share us and ndiyahalela camera jigiye pha kuye. He used to share ukuthi phethe pha Tavaka mos ne Park on 1968, 71, so 1971, mabeka ngicula ingoma ngolu hlobo nothi ngela xesha kwasawina ibhasi NCF ngiyaqoka engumkhulu wawethu esiqine ngaye apha emculweni. So but what I'm trying to say, colleagues, is that it's very important to be original, to be you, but understand these aspects, the technique on how to use the voice. Voice, you know, if I'm a motor, the kubi motor ye diesel fire put ne. And khona amaxesha uba ngaba ndiyasifaka isitshixo kufuneka ndilinde kube nento elayitayo pha. Then start ke ngoku. Then I can't just faka one gqume. Nandiqale ndibe nemizuzwane uyayibona into nditshoyo ne, so that kube nezinto ezingenayo ko pipe, which is the same as the voice. You cannot just go straight to on stage and say, what's this? Whatever that is happening. Because kunezinto apha which we are going to unpack up and again. As you need some technical aspects that you need to adhere to as the singer, as the conductor. Secondly, lalo kudebe kwathetha ngayo yokuthi the R vowel, the A, the what. Again, athi yesterday kabe sincokola kuda abathi amaxesha amaninzi siye sicinge ukuba ngaba blending will always marry with balance. Yes, kunjalo, kodwa balance, blending iyakwazi uma umewedwa, ameyedwa. Ndenza umzekelo ibisolo iyakwazi bingaplay. I then made an example ngoNesundorma.